we follow them onto that road, they'll spot us for sure.
We don't have to stick to the road. I can take Nellie Bell right up and over that hill.
Well, let's try.
Most people remember Dale Evans as one half of Hollywood's most beloved couple. Bright smile, matching outfits, riding side by side with Roy Rogers into the sunset. What they don't remember is what came after, because the final chapter of Dale's life wasn't a happy trail. It was a quiet, painful unraveling that began the moment she lost the one person she had built everything around. She had survived so much. But some losses leave a wound that simply doesn't heal, no matter how strong the person carrying it. The secret past, Hollywood erased. At 14, Dale Evans attended a public dance hosted at the local courthouse, where she met Thomas F. Fox. For two teenagers navigating the uncertainties of youth, the attraction was immediate and powerful. What began as a young romance quickly intensified into something that felt impossible to resist. In 1927, swept up in that whirlwind of first love, Dale and Thomas married. To do it, they lied about their ages. She was only 14 years old, while he was 17. A year later, in 1928, they welcomed their son, Thomas F. Fox, Jr. From the outside, it appeared to be the beginning of a happy new chapter, a young couple building a family together. But beneath the surface, cracks had already begun to form. In 1929, Thomas abandoned Dale, claiming he was too young to handle the responsibilities of marriage and fatherhood. It wasn't the first time he had walked away. He had already left her twice before, but this time he didn't return. He left behind a teenage wife and infant son, forcing Dale to face the consequences of their whirlwind romance on her own. For many people, that kind of heartbreak would have marked the end of their story. For Dale Evans, it became the beginning of a fight that would define the rest of her life. Now living in Memphis, Tennessee, Dale pursued her dream of becoming a singer with relentless determination. She worked tirelessly, pouring every ounce of energy into building a career in music. But dreams didn't pay the bills, and those early radio appearances brought in very little money. She was raising a young son on her own and needed stability just as much as she needed a stage. Fortunately, Dale had never been the type to sit back and wait for life to hand her opportunities. She was intelligent, resourceful, and absolutely unwilling to give up on the future she envisioned for herself. Not long after her divorce in 1929, another chapter in her personal life began. She met a man named August Wayne Johns, and despite the heartbreak she had recently endured, she married him later that same year. From the outside, they appeared to be building a happy life together. Yet years later, when Dale wrote her autobiography, Happy Trails, she barely acknowledged the marriage at all, leaving that relationship as one of the quieter mysteries of her life. To support herself and her son, Dale accepted work wherever she could find it. She took a position with a bus company and later found employment at an insurance agency. At the same time, she attended business classes, determined to sharpen her skills and create as many opportunities as possible. Ironically, it was while working behind a desk at the insurance office that fate finally stepped in. One ordinary day, Dale was quietly singing to herself as she worked. Her boss overheard her voice and immediately recognized something extraordinary. Rather than dismissing her daydreams of becoming an entertainer, he encouraged them. Believing she had genuine talent, he helped her secure singing opportunities on Memphis radio stations, WMC and WREC. For the first time, Dale caught a real glimpse of the life she had always wanted. By 1930, she was performing regularly on the radio, singing and playing piano for local programs, including broadcasts sponsored by the insurance company where she worked. She loved every minute of it. Still, Memphis began to feel too small for her ambitions. Convinced there had to be something bigger waiting beyond the city limits, she packed up her belongings, took her son, and moved to Chicago. Almost immediately, disaster struck. Doctors diagnosed her with acute malnutrition, forcing her to put her singing career on hold while she recovered. It could have been enough to crush the momentum she had fought so hard to build. Instead, it became just another obstacle. As soon as her health improved, Dale returned to work with the same determination that had carried her through every setback before. Her journey eventually led her to Louisville, Kentucky, where WAS Radio hired her as a singer. It was there that another major transformation took place. Until then, she had performed under names like Frances Fox and Marion Lee. But the station manager decided she needed something more memorable. He chose the name Dale Evans. Dale wasn't thrilled with the idea. To her, Dale sounded like a man's name, and Evans meant nothing personally. But the station manager insisted it was perfect for radio. It was smooth, easy to pronounce, difficult to misspell, and impossible to forget. Whether she liked it or not, Dale Evans had officially arrived. Throwing herself into her work, she devoted everything she had to building her reputation. She had no way of knowing that this new identity would eventually open doors to the music and film industries. Before those doors swung open, however, life delivered more hardship. In 1936, Dale and August ended their marriage. The separation was relatively uncomplicated since they had no children together, sparing her the burden of a lengthy legal battle at a time when she was already balancing motherhood and career ambitions. But that wasn't the only crisis she faced. Not long afterward, her son Tommy became seriously ill. With no extended family nearby in Chicago to help, Dale made another difficult decision. She returned to Dallas, Texas, where her parents had settled years earlier. Knowing she needed support, she left Tommy in the care of his grandparents in the small town of Italy, Texas, while she accepted a position at Dallas radio station WFAA. Once again, what appeared to be a setback became the beginning of something new. At WFAA, she reunited with Robert Dale Butts, a pianist and orchestra leader she had worked with previously. By coincidence, he had also relocated to Dallas and joined the station. Their friendship quickly deepened into romance. For Dale, it felt like an unexpected second chance at love. In 1937, she and Robert married and began building a future together. Soon afterward, they moved back to Chicago. Robert secured a position with an NBC affiliate, while Dale immersed herself in the city's thriving music scene. She flourished. Dale joined J. Mills's orchestra, performing regularly at the famous Edgewater Beach Hotel. Within months, she was selected as the lead vocalist for the Anson Weeks Orchestra. The opportunity launched her on a nationwide tour that lasted nearly a year and included a 2-month engagement at Los Angeles' prestigious Ambassador Hotel. When she returned to Chicago, demand for her talents had exploded. During the day, she sang for CBS radio broadcasts. At night, she performed in elegant supper clubs throughout the city, entertaining audiences at celebrated venues like the Blackstone, Sherman, and Drake hotels. She showcased her versatility as both a jazz vocalist and big band performer, steadily building a reputation as one of the hardest-working singers around. Eventually, Hollywood took notice. Talent agent Joe Rivkin heard her on the radio, looked through her promotional photographs, and urged her to head west immediately for a screen test. He promised a remarkable opportunity, a chance to star opposite Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire in the upcoming film Holiday Inn. The reality proved far less glamorous. After an exhausting flight to California, Dale was greeted with criticism rather than celebration. Rivkin immediately began reshaping her image to fit Hollywood's expectations. Suddenly, the 28-year-old singer was instructed to claim she was 21. She was no longer married. Her 12-year-old son was no longer her son. Publicly, he would become her younger brother. It was reinvention on an extraordinary scale. Despite those sacrifices, she lost the role in Holiday Inn to Marjorie Reynolds, and her Paramount screen test failed to produce results. Still, disappointment had never stopped Dale Evans before. She continued performing with jazz and swing orchestras, embracing the work she genuinely loved. Then another opportunity emerged. Although Holiday Inn had slipped through her fingers, executives at 20th Century Fox had been impressed enough to sign her anyway. There was, however, another catch. The studio transformed her personal struggles into a publicity strategy. They reduced her age by 7 years and presented her to audiences as a young, unmarried woman supporting her teenage brother. The carefully crafted story concealed the truth about her marriage and motherhood. And for years, the illusion remained intact until Dale eventually chose to reveal the truth herself. Then came 1943. That year brought 2 important film roles, The Cowboy and The Senorita, and Hollywood Canteen. Professionally, they marked a major breakthrough. Personally, one of them would alter the course of her life forever. What began as another step forward in her career was about to introduce Dale Evans to the man who would become inseparable from her story, a romance born from tragedy. In 1944, Dale Evans met the man who would forever change the course of her life, Roy Rogers. Working together on several film sets naturally brought them into each other's orbit. Long days on location turned into easy conversations, shared laughter, and a growing friendship. Before long, the connection between them became impossible to ignore. There was just one problem. Dale was still married to Robert Dale Butts, and Roy was married to his wife, Arlene. Whatever feelings may have been developing between them seemed destined to remain nothing more than friendship. For a time, it appeared their story would end before it had even truly begun. But life had a habit of rewriting Dale Evans' plans. By 1945, Dale and Robert officially divorced. From the outside, it may have seemed like the path was finally clear for her and Roy. Yet the timing still wasn't right. They continued working together, and their friendship deepened, but Dale had stopped expecting romance. As far as she was concerned, that chapter of her life had been set aside. Then tragedy struck. In 1946, Roy's wife, Arlene, died from a fatal embolism shortly after giving birth to their child. What should have been one of the happiest moments of their lives became an unimaginable loss. Roy was devastated. Through that painful season, Dale stood beside him. She offered support, compassion, and understanding when he needed it most. And somewhere in the middle of grief and healing, their relationship quietly transformed into something neither of them had planned. Love found its way to them after all. A year later, Roy proposed in a way that seemed perfectly suited to the stars of America's favorite westerns. Sitting atop their horses and preparing to make their entrance at a Chicago rodeo, he asked Dale to marry him. She said yes. For Dale, it would be her fourth marriage. For Roy, his third. By any measure, both carried their share of heartbreak and disappointment, yet neither had lost faith in love. They believed deeply in commitment, and perhaps even more deeply in the idea that God had guided them toward each other. On New Year's Eve in 1947, they became husband and wife. Almost overnight, their marriage transformed them into one of Hollywood's most beloved couples. Together, they represented something audiences desperately wanted to believe in: second chances, enduring love, and the promise that happiness could still be found after heartbreak. Their popularity soared. In 1951, they brought that chemistry to television with The Roy Rogers Show. On screen, Roy and Dale portrayed a married couple living on a ranch, solving problems, protecting their community, and bringing justice to anyone who needed it. The setting itself was unlike anything audiences had seen before. The series blended the Old West with the modern world. Cowboys rode horseback while cars drove by in the background. Telephones rang inside buildings, lit by electricity. It existed in a strange place somewhere between yesterday and today, but viewers embraced it anyway. Dale played the owner of a local cafe and hotel, accompanied by her faithful buckskin horse, Buttermilk, who became almost as popular as the stars themselves. Week after week, Roy and Dale confronted swindlers, dishonest businessmen, and corrupt lawmen. Yet the show offered more than simple entertainment. It frequently included messages about firearm safety, personal responsibility, and caring for the environment. As time passed, those moral lessons increasingly reflected the deep religious convictions Roy and Dale shared off-screen. At home, they were building a family as well as an empire. Their household already included Dale's son and Roy's 3 children from previous relationships. They embraced their blended family wholeheartedly and looked forward to welcoming another child together. Then joy gave way to heartbreak. In 1950, Dale and Roy welcomed their daughter Robin into the world, and they couldn't have been happier. After everything they had been through, her arrival felt like yet another blessing for their growing family. But that joy was soon tempered by heartbreaking news. Doctors discovered that Robin had been born with Down syndrome and a congenital heart defect. Despite the challenges, Dale and Roy cherished every moment with her. Tragically, just before her 2nd birthday, Robin contracted the mumps. She died shortly afterward. The loss shattered Roy and Dale. To the public, they were the king of the cowboys and his fearless cowgirl partner. But behind closed doors, they were grieving parents, struggling to understand why they had lost their little girl. It was not a pain that faded with time. Years later, the sorrow remained. In an effort to process her grief, Dale poured her emotions into a book titled Angel Unaware. Through her writing, she shared Robin's story and challenged society's deeply rooted prejudices toward people with developmental disabilities. What began as personal heartbreak evolved into a mission. Dale became an advocate, determined to change the way the world viewed individuals with Down syndrome. Her efforts eventually helped inspire the creation of what became known as the Dale Rogers Training Center, honoring her commitment to compassion, dignity, and acceptance. Even through grief, Roy and Dale chose love. They expanded their family through adoption, welcoming Debbie, formerly known as Lee, Dodie, and John David into their home. They also fostered another child, Marion. For a time, life seemed full again. Their home was busy, noisy, and overflowing with children. To those looking in from the outside, they appeared to have built the beautiful family they had always dreamed of, despite every obstacle life had placed in their path. But the Rogers family had not yet reached the end of their trials. Between 1951 and 1957, Dale Evans entered one of the most productive periods of her career. While audiences knew her as Roy Rogers' trusted partner on television and in film, there was another side to her talent that was flourishing behind the scenes. She was writing songs at an astonishing pace. During those 6 years alone, Dale penned more than 200 songs. Among them was one that would become inseparable from the Roy Rogers legacy, Happy Trails. According to legend, inspiration struck at the very last minute. Dale supposedly scribbled the lyrics on the back of an envelope and taught the song to Roy and the band only moments before they stepped into the recording studio. What began as a hurried piece of songwriting evolved into one of the most recognizable television themes of its era. But music wasn't the only thing that mattered to Dale. Faith had always been the foundation of her life. Raised with strong religious convictions, she never hesitated to speak openly about her beliefs. As The Roy Rogers Show continued to grow in popularity, Dale increasingly used her platform to share the message that had carried her through every hardship she had faced. She spoke often about trusting God during life's darkest moments and believing that faith could provide strength when human understanding fell short. Those convictions became part of her public identity. When The Roy Rogers Show finally aired its last episode in 1957, many people assumed it marked the end of an extraordinary chapter. After all, Roy and Dale had already built an entertainment empire together. They had appeared in 29 films and become two of the most beloved figures in American popular culture. For many performers, losing a hit television show would have felt like a devastating setback. But Roy and Dale had never been ordinary entertainers. Instead of dwelling on what had ended, they focused on what might come next. In 1962, the couple launched a new venture, The Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Show. Hoping to recreate the magic that had made audiences fall in love with them, they combined comedy, Western charm, music, and variety entertainment into a fresh format. It seemed like a sure thing. Unfortunately, audiences didn't respond the way they had hoped. The spark that had defined their earlier success simply wasn't there this time. Despite their optimism and experience, the series struggled to find its footing and was canceled after only a few months. It was a professional disappointment, and tragically, it would soon be overshadowed by far greater pain. In 1964, unimaginable heartbreak entered their home once again. Their 12-year-old daughter, Debbie, was killed in a horrific bus accident. The loss devastated the entire family. Then, before they had fully processed their grief, another tragedy followed. Just 1 year later, their 18-year-old son, John David, died in an accident while serving in the United States Army in Germany. Losing a child is a pain few parents can comprehend. Losing 2 children in such a short span of time was almost unbearable. For Roy and Dale, it felt as though the world had shifted beneath their feet. Yet even in the depths of grief, Dale searched for meaning. As she had done before, she turned to writing. Through her words, she tried to process the sorrow that seemed impossible to understand. She wrote inspirational books that honored the memories of Debbie and John David, transforming personal tragedy into messages of hope and perseverance for others facing their own hardships. Eventually, the couple realized they needed a change. The noise and demands of city life no longer offered comfort. Seeking peace and healing, they moved to Apple Valley, California, where they purchased a sprawling 67-acre property known as the Double R Bar Ranch. It became far more than a residence. It became a refuge. Surrounded by open land and the quiet rhythms of ranch life, Roy and Dale found a place where they could grieve privately, rebuild their spirits, and focus on what mattered most: faith, family, and each other. Even amid personal heartbreak, Dale remained deeply committed to her beliefs. That same year, she participated in a large public rally attended by approximately 2,500 supporters advocating for mandatory prayer in public schools after court rulings had removed it on constitutional grounds. For Dale, faith wasn't something reserved for church on Sundays. It shaped how she viewed the world, guided her decisions, and influenced the causes she chose to support. As the years passed, her devotion never faded. During the 1970s, she devoted much of her creative energy to writing and recording gospel music, producing albums centered on praise, worship, and spiritual encouragement. Decades later, long after many of her contemporaries had stepped away from the spotlight, Dale was still finding new ways to share her message. Well into her 80s, she hosted a Christian television program called A Date with Dale, speaking to viewers with the same warmth, conviction, and sincerity that had defined her entire career. Age may have slowed many things, but it never weakened her faith. In truth, that unwavering belief had become one of the defining threads of her life. It had carried her through failed marriages, public reinventions, career disappointments, and the unimaginable pain of losing children. And as difficult as those trials had been, even greater challenges still lay ahead. Before long, Dale Evans would once again find herself leaning on the faith that had sustained her for decades, because the next chapter of her story would test her strength in ways she had never anticipated. After Roy Rogers' death, Dale Evans' life was truly awful and heartbreaking. In 1998, Dale Evans faced one final heartbreak that would change the rest of her life. On July 6th, Roy Rogers passed away from congestive heart failure at the age of 86. He died at the couple's beloved ranch in Apple Valley, California, the same place where they had built a life together and sought peace after enduring so many storms. For Dale, the loss was devastating. For more than 50 years, Roy had been far more than a husband. He had been her partner in every sense of the word, her co-star, her closest friend, her source of laughter, and the person who had stood beside her through triumph and tragedy alike. Together, they had weathered failed careers, public scrutiny, unimaginable grief, and the heartbreaking loss of children. Through it all, they had remained united. Suddenly, that constant presence was gone. All Dale had left were the memories of the extraordinary life they had shared. Years earlier, Roy had reflected on that life in the autobiography Happy Trails, Our Life Story, published in 1981. In its pages, he made it clear just how much Dale meant to him. He described her as his guiding star and openly acknowledged that he could never have accomplished what he did without her by his side. To Roy, Dale had been his anchor. She had carried him through some of the darkest moments of his life with unwavering faith, strength, and compassion. Their relationship wasn't built on fairy tale perfection. It had been tested repeatedly by hardship and loss. Perhaps that was exactly why so many people connected with their story. They had proven that love could survive heartbreak. Even in the midst of her grief, Dale wasn't entirely alone. Their surviving children rallied around her, offering support as she struggled to navigate life without the man she had loved so deeply. After years marked by unimaginable losses, there was some comfort in knowing that the rest of their children would go on to build full and meaningful lives of their own. It almost seemed as though the family had finally been granted a season of peace. Dale had little reason to worry about the legacy she would leave behind. The Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Museum preserved the story of the couple who had become symbols of faith, family, and the American West. But perhaps even more meaningful was the work carried on by their children. One of them, Cheryl Rogers Barnett, whom Roy and Dale had welcomed into their family through adoption, embraced many of the same causes that had been close to Dale's heart. She continued advocating for vulnerable children through her involvement as an active charter member of the organization Child Help USA. The values Dale had spent a lifetime championing, compassion, service, and faith, continued long after the spotlight had faded. Yet no amount of pride in her family could erase the emptiness left by Roy's absence. She never truly recovered from losing him. For the next 2.5 years, Dale quietly carried the weight of that grief. The woman who had endured poverty, public reinvention, failed marriages, the deaths of children, and countless disappointments had always managed to keep moving forward through faith and determination. But saying goodbye to Roy had left a wound that never fully healed. Then, on February 7, 2001, Dale Evans passed away at the age of 88. There was one final haunting similarity between their deaths. Like Roy before her, Dale died from congestive heart failure. For her family, the loss was profound. They had not only lost a mother and grandmother, but the woman whose resilience had shaped generations of people, both inside and outside her own home. Today, Dale Evans and Roy Rogers rest side by side, reunited after a lifetime defined by devotion, perseverance, and unwavering faith. Their story was never a perfect one. It was marked by hardship, disappointment, reinvention, and unimaginable grief. Yet through every chapter, they continued choosing each other. They built a partnership rooted not simply in romance, but in loyalty, friendship, and a shared belief that even life's deepest wounds could be endured with love and faith. Perhaps that's why their story continues to resonate decades later. People didn't just admire Roy Rogers and Dale Evans because they were famous. They remembered them because they represented hope. They showed that second chances are possible, that love can survive the harshest trials, and that even after tremendous loss, a life built on faith, compassion, and commitment can leave an enduring mark on the world. Long after the final curtain fell, the legacy of Dale Evans and Roy Rogers continued to ride on. An American love story that time has never managed to erase.